Hey everyone, welcome back to my live weekly speaking test series where I record spontaneous answers to this week's latest speaking test questions. Alright, let's see what this week of July has for us. Part 1. Do you like to look at the sky? Yeah, I do. I mean, what kind of person doesn't? It's fun. I've always enjoyed looking at the sky, but I don't really find the time to do that as a solitary activity, if that makes any sense. I mean, I'll do it occasionally when I'm working. I'll catch a glimpse of the moon or something. I mean, just a couple of days ago, we had a particularly lovely vision of the moon. It was a half moon, and after, I think, quite a few rainy days, we were finally able to get a little bit of clear sky. So it was really beautiful to see. But of course, the place where I live, we have a lot of light pollution and air pollution, so it can be very difficult to see any stars or such things clearly. It's very rare to have a clear, beautiful night where you can see everything, but when you do, though, it's amazing. Can you see the moon and stars at night where you live? Yeah. Well, I can, um, but I mean, like I said, there's a lot of light pollution. It's a huge mega city, so all the light from all the commercial and residential buildings and everything, it kind of, I mean, there never really is pure darkness, if that makes any sense. On the rare, super rare occasion that there's ever a power cut, I remember, I think 2 years ago we had this power cut for like a few minutes and I was outside and everything was so dark, but it was illuminated by moonlight and it was so beautiful to see that you could still see things just because of the power of the moonlight. I think that was really amazing, and you could see all the really tiny stars. And I have this habit, I always watch out for, I'm not sure what it's called, but there's three stars that are kind of in line, and the middle one is kind of a little bit bigger. It just looks so beautiful. Do you prefer the sky in the morning or the sky at night? Probably the night sky. The morning sky just gives me a headache. But it can be beautiful, like especially in the winters, when it's this lovely soft kind of peachy glow. I think that's beautiful. And some summer days when you can see just a very, very clear blue sky with really white clouds. In fact, a couple years ago, and I bought this new phone, and I was just kind of trying out the camera, and I saw the sky, like, oh my God, that's so beautiful, and I took a lot of pictures of it. But normally, yeah, if I find the night sky far more interesting and wondrous than the morning sky. Because again, I get a headache if I look at like if there's a lot of sunlight or something, then I'm out. That's not for me. Are there any good places to look at the sky where you live? See, being in the city, anytime you go outside, your view of the sky is going to be obstructed by buildings and trees and all sorts of things. So we do have a lot of open air grounds. I mean, like parks and gardens and a lot of, what are they called? These cricket grounds as well, where you have a very unobstructed view. But the best views can often be found from high rises, especially if you have a balcony or something. Or you can, I mean, a lot of people do go on to their apartment buildings terrace as well. Of course, I think it's a bit unsafe to do that. But yeah, I mean, if you live in a high rise, that's the best thing. I mean, if you have, let's say, if you're on the 10th floor or above and you've got a balcony, that's great. You'll have a very good view because most buildings tend to be like 7 stories, maybe 10 stories, but not more than that. So after a point, you have a much better view of everything that's going on. Okay, so let's see what we have for part 2. Okay. Oh, describe a performance that you enjoyed watching. You should say what the performance was, when and where you watched the performance, who was performing, and explain why you enjoyed this performance. Wow, I have so many ideas. And here, performance, I'd just like to explain this briefly. So, performance doesn't necessarily have to mean, like, let's say, a live concert. It can be, of course, but that's not the only thing. You can have, let's say, a ballet performance or any kind of vocal recital. Concerts are, of course, fair game. You could even talk about, I think you could potentially talk about any kind of anything that's related to art or music, theater. it could even be another type, like, maybe a skit or something else, but pretty much anything that's related to art. So, and it doesn't have to be live. It nowhere does it say live performance, right? So you have a lot of flexibility in how you choose to answer a question like this. And I think this is a really great question because, again, I know that most of you do suffer like from nervousness if you get a question about, arts or sports or something of that sort. But hey, you need to learn about these things. Okay, so I'm gonna just take a moment here. I'm not gonna make any notes, but let me just think, because there are so many things that come to mind. I want to choose the best one. Okay, so I'm gonna start my response now. So a couple months ago, I'm not sure if it was a couple months ago. It was probably, I think, a year and a half ago. Let me think. It was February, I think, February 2020. No, sorry. I think it was April 2020 when I saw this performance of Werther. It's an opera that, okay, it was written by the opera is written by a Frenchman. The original story is German, and the performance was put out by the New York Metropolitan Opera House. And they had, well, it was actually shot in France, so that's like, I don't know. I mean, it's just this amazing thing. I'm a culture vulture, so I really love, performances and anything that's related to music and art. I really enjoy it. So anyway, this story is a really tragic story, and I love tragic stories. They're the best. It's this whole, period of literary times where you had all these really amazing, really heart-wrenching stories. Yes, but that's kind of this. It's kind of what opera is about. Not entirely, but anyway, I digress. So it's this really. I think it was like a 2.5, maybe 3 hour performance. Of course, I didn't watch it all in one go because that's it's very taxing to watch something for 3 hours. And again, it was online. They were streaming it because of the pandemic. In fact, they still are. There's a lot of amazing operas I got to watch that way because they don't watching them in my country is like difficult, really difficult. So I forgot the lead female soprano's name. I think that was. I'm not sure. I don't remember. I know her surname was Koch, but I don't know anything else. And of course, the lead. Uh, uh, tenor, yeah, that's called. You see, I'm still kind of new to this whole thing, so the vocal classifications and everything, I don't really have them down pat, but I just love watching. So the lead tenor was Jonas Kaufman, whom I really admired ever since I watched a performance of this. It's called The Flower Song. I watched it on YouTube because it came up while I was watching other performances, and ever since then I've really sought out performances because these are really great. Singer of course, but an actor as well. And I think in opera it's so important to have both of these things. You got to be a good actor, you got to be a good singer, of course. You have to do both of them, and these audiences can be extremely demanding. So I was just at home and sitting on my couch and just watching this lovely performance, and I'd really waited for them to show this. They weren't showing it for a really long time. You could see everything. You could see Tristan und Isolde. You could see a lot of the others as well, classics, but this one is kind of, it's popular, but it's just not performed, very frequently. So I really just love the whole set, the whole story. It's really like they really bring it to life. What people often say is when there's a movie that's made on a book or a story, it can kind of fall flat, right? You feel like, ugh, the book was better than the movie. But in this case, they did it full justice. It was so beautifully shot, recorded, acted out, sung out. It was entirely in French, and I've been wanting to relearn French ever since then, but oh well, I haven't been very successful. Maybe someday. Okay. All right, let's see what we have for part 3. Okay, do you think traditional performances are important? That it depends on what you call a traditional performance. If you're referring to each country's cultural traditions, folk dance, folk music, and all these things, yes, I absolutely do think they're important. I think we should aim to preserve culture as much as we possibly can. It's not that I don't think diversity is a good thing. I do think it's a great thing, but we also need to uphold things from the past. Some people might feel like, it's old-fashioned, leave it be, nobody cares. But it's important for people to have a common national or cultural, identity. And one part of cultural identity is, of course, language, but language isn't the only thing. We transmit language through culture, art, performances, whether they're, again, songs, stories, folk tales, all these things, you name it, they're all vehicles of culture. So it's important that we uphold these vehicles of culture. Otherwise, you can see a lot of cultures are dying out. I mean, there's so many languages of tribes of people who live in the Pacific Ocean. They're dying out. There's many other, of course, as well, languages that are dying out. They're not as popular anymore, and there's very little government investment, in keeping these languages alive, which is sad. Of course, it's sad. What do you think is the difference between watching a live performance and watching it on TV? Well, a live performance, I think you can really kind of feel like you're one with the whole um, audience there, and the person who's performing as well. It's definitely more, I think it's better compared to watching it on TV, because it's like, well, see, when you're watching something on TV, you have the option, you can pause, you can just come back to it later. Why wouldn't you? That's part of the appeal. But when you're watching something live, it has your full attention. You can't do anything else. I mean, if you were to go watch a performance of an opera or something, I mean, you'd be requested, even for movie theaters, right? You have to turn off your phones and everything, and you really have to immerse yourself there. Of course, you don't have the same restrictions when you're just watching it on TV or on your laptop or something. You have a lot more freedom, but I think that comes at a price of maybe not being fully immersed and engrossed in the performance. That might cause you to kind of lose out on a lot of nuances, a lot of understanding, a lot of the plot, because it's just not that invested, right? But if you paid for a ticket, you're attending something live, the energy around you is all centered on, whoever the performers are. That's a very exhilarating moment, very good, I think, vibe to be around. How do you think to watch? Oh, looks like there's a typo here. How do you think watching a dance performance or a stage play influences children? So I think that's an important thing, to expose them to all of these facets of culture, because I mean, see, academics are one thing that's really important, yes, but creativity is the most important thing, because you need it to be able to solve problems in life, right? It's not just art, music, and create paintings and sculptures and songs and stuff like that. It's a lot more than that. It's really important for brain health. So and again, these can be like learning to dance or act out, saying, create something, even something like working on pottery. All of these artistic outlets can help children to, because they're young, they may not know how to channel their emotions. you know of course, the most, I think, common thing for a kid to do would be to just throw a tantrum. I don't understand how to verbalize my feelings. I don't understand how to explain what I need, because I don't have the verbal proficiency, right? Even if, I mean, you're talking about a 4-year-old, 5-year-old even, I think that would allow them an outlet to kind of channelize their energies in a more productive instead of destructive way, which is great for both parent and child. And of course, generally, I mean, you want them to learn. I mean, at least this is my view. Somebody else might differ, but I think it's important to raise children to appreciate these aspects of culture. You have a lot of people who are all very highly educated and everything, and they seem very worldly wise, but they have no understanding of culture, or no understanding of cultural competence or appreciation for things like art, history, architecture, things of this sort. They're just so out of touch with that side of human nature. I would want, my kids to be exposed to all of that, for sure. Should cultural performances be subsidized by the government? It depends on what kind of cultural performance it is. Again, I think it's important to do that, because, of course, see, not everyone's going to have a desk job. Not everyone's going to be a software engineer or a nurse or whatever. All of us have different skills and gifts to offer society, and artists do deserve fair pay and compensation. They do deserve to have the very basics of life, at least. I mean, we've seen with, the pandemic, for example, the operators, I mean, the people who play music at the Metropolitan Opera, they're actually staging a protest because they haven't been paid for close to a year now. Meanwhile, in a lot of European countries, they're actually paying their musicians, artists, anybody who's involved in that realm, money to, sustain themselves, stay at home. Sure, is that, obviously just giving out money isn't ideal. I mean, to just about any random person, but sometimes you have to do it, and I think that is more important than just saving money in the short term. Because if you don't uphold your culture, if you, like I was saying earlier, these vehicles of culture, you need to grease their wheels. I mean, if you don't promote it, you will end up um, seeing your culture destroyed, and just, well, not destroyed maybe, but just, erased. It becomes this fanciful thing in history, like, corsets, for example. That's an extreme example, but we think of it as this funny thing from antiquated times, right? I mean, if you really want to see your, linguistic or cultural or ethnic group survive and thrive, I think you need to invest in these things. Otherwise, I mean, everybody, just imagine it would be such a boring world if everybody just, watched the same TV shows and listened to the same music, spoke the same language, read the same books and newspapers, and everything was just one big gray, homogeneous mass. I think that kind of society would be very boring. I don't think that anybody would really enjoy living in some place like that. So yes, you must invest in culture. That is an intangible thing, but it offers very real benefits. And that's all for today, I think. These were really good questions. As always, you can find the latest questions on our website, so make sure you do that each week. And what I recommend is you should practice the last 3 to 4 months worth of questions, because questions on IELTS, for the IELTS speaking test, are recycled very frequently. Yeah, so you got to be careful about that. All right, then, that's all for today. You can check back next week, or you can check back on Wednesday. We're right on Wednesday. Right then, I'll see you later. Bye bye.